This episode of TechZilla is sponsored by Drobo, the United States Air Force, and GoToMeeting.com. Coming up in this episode, Veronica Belmont is in the house. Or is that in the studio? Well, she's here. We're going to talk about upgrading your laptop, the things you need to consider before spending a dime on notebook upgrades, because it may be cheaper to buy a new notebook. We got a DIY Macbook charger for your car. Apple won't make you one, so we're going to help you figure out how to do it. And speaking of laptops, we got a gadget here to take the heat off your laptop while making it more ergonometrically correct. Roger, his wrists were saved by it. All that plus a flurry of your viewer questions on today's TechZilla.
Can I keep this?
Yes, but we
don't
talked about that.
Don't point it at you. Oh, I'm
here,
sorry.
We'll just hold this back
heavy.
here later in the show. I'm Patrick Norton. Welcome to your host, TechZilla.
And I'm Veronica Belmont.
Or welcome to TechZilla. I'm your host, Patrick Norton. You're
And
co-hosting.
I'm Veronica Belmont. I said that already.
We'll give. We're going to hand this. Actually, I don't want it back here either. We got a great show lined up for you today. Not just air cannons. That's on system, but we got the do's and don'ts of upgrading your notebook computer. We got some awesome, or at least an awesome gadget for laptop users on the go. And Stephanie's back to answer some of your vector and raster questions. But before we begin, shall we welcome you back?
Thank you.
You got to go to South by Southwest last week.
I did.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I got back on Wednesday, so I missed all the, fun stuff with the music.
So you just went to the boring website stuff.
Yeah, well, no, interactive is a lot of fun, too. I mean, you get to see everyone that you never get to see. You get to meet people from all over the world, and you get to talk about really geeky things.
And there's panels, there's parties, there's, apparently there was some sort of
Wait, there's panels?
Panels.
I just remember the parties.
Integrating money-making schemes with your website, 17 ways to avoid bankruptcy due to, download fees.
Yeah, I actually moderated a panel this year.
What did you moderate a panel on?
How to rock South by Southwest. Because I'm an old pro, obviously.
Did you just throw the horns on TechZilla?
Oh, I threw the horns.
If you're really hardcore, you'd have to throw them with two hands. Yeah.
You're too much.
That was bad. I apologize. Good? Learn
it was
anything?
good, yeah, very much. Let's see, what did I learn about? I learned about sci-fi interfaces. That was very cool. That was a very cool
For
panel.
websites? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Well, not just websites, kind of in general. It was this whole thing about how we take cues from sci-fi stuff of the past, Star Trek, Star Wars, all sorts of really great stuff. So, a lot of cool things to learn about.
I like that thought. Well, should we fire it up?
Yeah, I'm ready to get started. How about you?
I am excited. Well, viewer comments I think we should throw up first.
All right, the first two emails come from viewers who wanted to give us some suggestions for streaming content to the Xbox 360. Frankie writes in, you don't need to use Windows Media Player to stream media to your 360. You can use a program called T-Versity. It used to be handy to transcode media when your 360 didn't support .avi files. And David in the UK emailed with a solution for Mac users like me and you, wanting to stream media to the Xbox 360. He said, love the segment on the 360 and Apple TV, etc., but you don't have to stick to Windows to share all your videos. There is a program called Connect 360. It's not free, but definitely worth paying for. To everyone else who emailed in with these suggestions, and there were a lot of you, thank you.
Speaking of lots of comments, I received a deluge, a flood, a nightmare of email about the Ubuntu install last week. John pretty much sums up 99% of everyone's feelings in this email. Why did Patrick install Ubuntu using the alternative text install? The standard desktop install is an installable live CD, so you can play with the full desktop and install with a much easier graphical installer, or not install it and play with the live environment. To John and the hundreds of concerned citizens who wrote in about the Ubuntu Live CD install, yes, actually I know about the live installer, but so many people actually wanted a step-by-step walkthrough of Linux, not just Ubuntu's GUI installer, but maybe we can show that in the future. And for anybody who wants to try Ubuntu without physically installing it on your machine, the Live CD is a fabulous way to go.
Now, Patrick, we weren't the only ones to receive email about last week's show. It seems that Stephanie Chu also had quite a few comments on her vector versus raster segment.
True.
So many, in fact, that Patrick had to shoot a whole new segment just to answer them.
All right, a couple weeks ago, Stephanie Chu joined us talking about vector versus raster graphics. It elicited so much email, we figured we'd have her back to answer a few questions from you with us live. Welcome back to the show, Steph.
Thanks, Patrick.
Are you excited?
I'm excited.
You ready to answer some viewer questions?
Yes, I am. Bring it on.
All right. Start off with Eric B., who wrote, Stephanie said to use a combination of Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator for posters. Another program I think is worth mentioning is Adobe InDesign. You can take your photos and logos and lay them all out in InDesign, that's a tough one, to make posters, brochures, books, etc., and export them to press-ready PDF files.
Well, this is absolutely correct. For those of you who don't know, InDesign is actually a page layout program that can help you do multi-page layouts. And so for a poster, you can use InDesign because it's capable, but I find that it's more appropriate to use it for multi-page layouts, brochures.
So it'd be like using PageMaker or Quark or LaTeX to do a single page.
Yeah, InDesign is cool because you can also use style sheets, and you could import all your Illustrator and Photoshop files, and so it'll work, but Illustrator is way more appropriate. So
seems a lot simpler.
Illustrator, yeah.
Well, compared to like a page layout tool.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't exactly lay out a whole book in InDesign. So Illustrator.
You could. It'd just be a really awkward process.
Yeah.
Oh, well. We got Rome with the next question. What is the best or easiest way to take a raster image and convert it to a vector image without using Adobe Illustrator? Plenty of times I run across logos that are only available as a GIF or a JPEG, and I'm faced with trying to get that image to be clear once I scale it up or scale it down.
Right. So if you're not going to use anything like Live Trace in Illustrator or the discontinued old school program called Adobe Streamline, you can use something that's web-based and free called vectormagic.com.
Oh, cool.
And it's in beta form, so it's still being tested out. However, the company is coming out with a desktop version, but that's going to run you at least $50 according to their website.
That's not too bad.
So for now, use the free one because it works.
Cool. And we got a few viewer recommendations for Inkscape alternatives.
Right. Some viewers wrote in about some other programs that we didn't go too far into detail in last time. Jim says he likes Vector Designer, and this is a program that actually won the Best of Show at Macworld. And he says that it's simple with a lot of filters, and so I'd be willing to go ahead and give that a try as well. It's going to run you about $70.
Not too bad.
Right, and then also we have a viewer in Hungary named Majoros, and he writes in praises for Zara Extreme. We did mention it last time, but we didn't go into too much detail. But he felt the need to write in because he says that this is a great program. It not only exports to the standard file types such as EPS, API, PDF, but also it has its own file format. I think it's XAR and
ZAR.
ZAR, yeah, that's right.
Is having your own file format an advantage, or something where you're going to have I have 275,000 ZAR files and I can't open them with anything?
I've personally found that it's not a huge advantage, just because if you're sending the ZAR format to a whole bunch of people, if they don't have that same program, it might be hard for them to work with the file. So I like to stick to the standard, so thank God it works out that it exports to EPS and PDF. So yeah, it's going to run you about $80, and our viewer in Hungary feels so strongly about it, so I figure, hey, let's give it another look.
Very cool, and also apparently doesn't require a lot of very powerful machine to run, which is also a plus.
Oh, that's right. You don't need a whole lot of juice to run the program, so that's a plus.
Always nice. Yeah. Stephanie, awesome stuff. You going to come back, answer some more viewer questions in a couple weeks?
Yeah, if they write in.
Write in. TechZilla at revision3.com. Ask Stephanie your questions about graphics and layout. We actually had some pretty good ones talking about how you draw or not draw in vector programs.
I'd be happy to investigate.
Excellent. I want to thank Stephanie again for taking the time to answer these questions. And we're going to be passing along your words of advice, or actually I should say we're passing along our Pixel Princess's words of advice on this episode. Show notes, links to all those applications up at revision3.com/TechZilla.
Well, very enlightening, Patrick. Lots of good info, but I think it's time you paid the bills.
Abso-smurfly. Now, when you're trying to meet with clients or colleagues in person, you spend hours stuck in traffic or at the airport. It sucks. You spend a fortune on gas, hotels, or airline tickets. That also sucks. Just for a 2-hour meeting, or maybe worse yet, a 20-hour briefing. Now you can do more and travel less with the easy-to-use GoToMeeting. Instead of driving or flying to get to your meeting, just host an online meeting right from your computer. Everybody simply logs on to GoToMeeting.com during a conference call. They instantly see your computer desktop on their computer screen. It's like meeting in person, but less expensive and less time consuming. The best part is you can try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use promo code TechZilla. That's GoToMeeting.com, promo code TechZilla. Try it out. You'll help us out.
Laptops are meant for portability. While they're great for pounding out that 10-page business report on the airplane ride home, it makes for a lousy ergonomic experience when you're at your desk. So do your back and neck a favor and check out Griffin's Elevator. This simple doodad elevates your laptop to proper eye level. Just slap on an external keyboard and mouse and you've got yourself a comfortable computing position. Plus, its open frame design allows your machine to run cooler, saving your system from heat-related wear and tear. The unit comes in 3 parts, 2 legs and the base. Just plug in the plastic legs into the base and you got yourself a laptop stand. Take it apart and it fits into most luggage, great for when you're working out of your hotel room. And with the price of around $40, it's a lot cheaper than having your spine realigned by a chiropractor. Your wallet and your back will thank you.
Notebook computers are great, but after a couple of years, your machine can feel a little long in the tooth. Fancy websites run slow and newer multimedia software barely runs. Short of buying a new machine, what can you do? You can try upgrading.
Now, why would you upgrade instead of just buying yourself a new laptop?
Well, one of the things about notebooks is they tend to be expensive as all hell. So once you've spent $3,000 on a piece of hardware, you may not want to dump it after 2 years.
In other words, you want to get your money's worth.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why gaming laptops can be one of the sort of least. If you did sort of $1 per long.
You mean short on value?
Yeah, because you tend to be in a year, you're going to be like, oh man, I totally need a new graphics card. And unless you happen to be one of the point something percent of the notebook buying populace that actually has upgradable graphic cards.
MXM.
If you can find an upgradable graphics card, you're SOL, it's a highly technical term, and you're going to have to buy a new $3,000 gaming notebook.
Well, and the flip side is, spending all that much money on upgrading your laptop notebook, oftentimes you're actually kind of set with the motherboard, so your returns might be pretty low, especially if you're trying to do a CPU upgrade or even video if you do not have the necessary bandwidth available on your Mobo.
Now, on the upside, there's a couple things. If you move a lot of files on and off the hard drive and it takes forever, your hard drive spoil, maybe you're pretty happy, but you want more storage. Upgrading your hard drive in your laptop actually is usually pretty beneficial, both in terms of performance and obviously making for more storage, greater storage capacity, and it's usually relatively cheap.
It is super cheap. In fact, when I bought my first MacBook, 3 months later, I bought a 250 gig Hitachi drive and I swapped it out for the 160 that came with it. Mm-hmm. And I pretty much filled it up. I only have like 40 gigs left of space. So during that time, I've actually consciously filled it up with more crap.
More crap.
Yes.
Happy crap. Speaking of crap, memory. If you find yourself applications get larger, maybe doing photo editing or something, maybe you bought a less expensive version of a notebook that only had 500 megabytes or a gigabyte. If you can up it up to 2 gigabytes of RAM, because RAM is so cheap, even SD RAM, the stuff that's used in notebooks, RAM is usually a really easy upgrade, sometimes a strange upgrade, but RAM is usually really beneficial.
In fact, most of the time on most laptops, it's actually located on the bottom. Mm-hmm. You need to pop off a plate. Now, the thing is, you want to kind of read up on the specs for your particular notebook. Oftentimes, for example, this low-end PC VAIO I have only allows you 2 memory slots, and those are limited to 1 gigabyte each, so the total amount of RAM I can actually stick on this is 2 gigs. So don't go out and buy like two gig sticks because you're not gonna really get much out of them other than 2 gigs. So keep that in mind. You really kind of want to make sure you're getting what's appropriate for your laptop and not necessarily what you would like to have. In this particular case, I cannot take out the hard drive because it's covered pretty much by an entire acre of plastic.
You can, but it'll just take you like 6 to 12 hours to actually burrow into it, and then you have to put it back together. As
opposed to the MacBook, which is almost stupid easy.
Well, it's kind of funny. Like most notebooks will hide the memory under the keyboard or on the backside, like you said. The MacBook does this insane lever snap-out system. But it's actually, once you get used to it, it's not too bad. You can see me kind of ratcheting it out of the place.
And again, do read up on your specs because, for example, this MacBook is the latest iteration of the MacBook, will support 2 gigs per slot. The older ones, the original ones, only support a gig max. You can actually squeeze in 3, but
well, you can put in 2 gigabyte memory stick or pieces of memory and actually get 3 to 3.5 gigs. So that's actually something. One of the things to check out is check the forums, do search for your model name, because sometimes you'll find out you can squeak out a little bit more than the ratings.
And in this case, the laptop comes out really easy.
The hard drive?
The hard drive, the laptop.
I got to say, the serial ATA on the newer laptops is much simpler than dealing with
Yes.
these tiny pins on the older
You just
IDE
need to
ones.
plug in and out. Now, the thing is, those are the easy upgrades. Those are the ones that are worthwhile doing, especially if you have a laptop that's maybe a couple of years old. There's still life in it, but you're running out of space. Memory always helps, especially if you got like 512 megs by default. Having a gig or more, definitely more, will definitely see a performance improvement, especially if you're running multiple applications. That being said, actually one thing I actually wanted to add was optical drives. Although you can't do it with the MacBook, you actually can do it with most PC laptops. 2 screws and the CD, DVD, ROM drive pops out. In this case, it's a DVD dual layer burner, so I don't really need to change it.
Right.
However, if I got stuck with like a DVD-ROM CDR combo and I wanted DVD burning, you'd probably pay about $60-$70 for one of these.
Yeah, you can do a search on Newegg, and actually, usually these faceplates are removable. And
The
you can
bezels come off, although in certain ones it takes a little more effort than other ones, just so you can match it up with your notebook, unless you just like having mismatched color on your particular unit. Now, again, those are the easy upgrades. Those are the ones that pretty much anyone can do. Now, if you want to get a little more sophisticated or you want to get a little more adventurous, you can actually burrow into your machine and do things. And he giggles because he knows what a joy this is. In fact, because I had to pop the laptop
Okay,
keyboard.
well, imagine having, something that's worth a few hundred, a few $1,000s, maybe a couple grand, right? You spent your hard-earned money. Maybe you're still making payments. And you get yourself your little set of cool guy screwdrivers or cool gal screwdrivers. You've got your mini screwdrivers. And then, you maybe go to a website and you start taking things apart.
Like my keyboard.
That's relatively painless.
It is relatively painless. However, that's just to get over to one PCI, or actually mini PCI card that contains my wireless or Wi-Fi card. Now, if you don't buy this included or you got one that's damaged, you do have the remote possibility, especially if you have a DTR PC notebook, to swap these out for a newer unit or a functioning unit, depending on what your situation is. However, depending on where it's located, oftentimes it's either located on the corner. I've seen in some cases it's located quite easily underneath the laptop. But most of the time they're kind of a pain because you got to take the entire chassis apart in order to get to them. So if you're adventurous, you can actually save yourself some money if you need to upgrade, and you don't have to get one of these expansion or express card or PCMI.
Well, it's also
PCMCI
it's nice
cards.
because if you can go from like 802.11b to 802.11g or 802.11n or without actually having the card hanging out the side.
That and it's not easy to lose. It actually increases the value of your notebook because you can sell it and just say, hey, now it does N. Although and it's a little cheaper too than buying one of these.
Don't expect to make a lot of money off selling any notebook.
Okay, the profit margin's pretty thin, but it's there.
Profit? You mean the loss margin?
Now, in some cases, you can actually swap out the screen as well. Again, this is a big pain.
Let me qualify this. We know one person through a trusted friend who has upgraded the monitor on a MacBook.
I've actually read up on a few people who've done it, but I'm gonna like Patrick says, it's not easy, it's not simple, and it's not something you're gonna do over a weekend unless you do this for a living, because it involves a lot of small parts and a lot of very delicate connecting, and it's not something that you would want to do.
One of the advantages, and I should say advantages, because people are, all those crazy Apple kids that get so excited about their MacBooks and their MacBook Pros. One of the advantages of that is sites like iFixit, which is a great site if you want to learn how to repair an iPod or replace a battery in your iPod. They have detailed step-by-step instructions on how to basically pull apart your notebook far enough to upgrade any part of your notebook if it's a Mac. If you run with a PC notebook, invariably, whether it's IBM or Compaq or Toshiba, either there's a bunch of cool websites I still haven't found, or you're basically figuring out how to pull all this. So you're sitting there with your blue tape and you're taking, I'll sit with a digital camera and I'll take a picture every step of the way so I know how it goes back together.
With some of the more generic laptops that are made by the large Taiwanese, we make one model and we sell it to 5 different vendors. You might get away with that, but if you're going with like a Dell or something where they actually customize a lot of the arrangements inside, it's probably going to be a lot less easy. Now, one thing we didn't touch upon was the CPU. CPU is, of course, the actual processor in the machine. MacBook, you can't because it's actually soldered. In most notebooks, it's soldered.
It's a BGA where the solder gets sucked through the bottom of the motherboard.
If you're lucky enough to get one of those big DTRs that look like the size of of the old style briefcase where it has a latch on it, you actually can pop those out. However, CPU upgrades are pretty expensive. Even if you get something as low as like a 2 gigahertz mobile Core 2 Duo part, it's not cheap compared to a desktop part. And in the long term, it's probably better just to wait for the rest of your laptop to go obsolete than to spend, what is it, $300 to $400 on a single processor when you're going to spend that money and upgrade anyway.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that when you shop around for this Newegg, Directron, your local computer store, you can basically shop around, because Newegg's one of the first places I ever found where they actually had the DVD drives for computers for sale, so you could upgrade an older notebook to have a burner inside of it if it didn't have it. Memory is really easy to find. Processors are almost impossible to find. And one of the things you'll find out is replacement screens. You can find them, but it's usually really difficult.
It's like an eBay thing. It's an eBay Easter egg hunt.
And you got to be really careful, because half the time, at some point, right around somewhere between $600 and $1,000, you can buy a really nice new notebook that's going to kick the snot out of almost anything that's 2 years old.
And when you do that, you're basically getting an entirely new generation of I/O ports as well as systems. So front-side bus, memory controller. If there are any G-Wiz ports that you don't have, like FireWire or FireWire 800, HDMI if you're into HD.
I don't know if a lot of $800 notebooks are going to have HDMI.
That's true, but for about $1,200, you can get a lot of those items in it. And if you're going to spend $400 on a CPU, you might as well save that and put it toward a new laptop. Again, though, if you just need to squeak out more productivity, a little more speed out of your existing laptop, the cheapest, most effective ways to go is storage, hard drive, and memory.
Absolutely. Get it up to 2 gigabytes and upgrade the hard drive.
And like the websites you mentioned, Newegg, Directron, they offer a lot of those pieces, including the CPU and stuff, if you're willing to go the extra mile and spend the money, which I don't necessarily recommend, unless you won the lottery setting a pile of cash.
Yeah, or if you're in an IT department and you have 10,000 of this particular model notebook, and then you're reusing parts, because you have lots of parts you can swap across RAM and hard drive and screens, and maybe because of the capital budget expenditures, it makes more sense for you to have an intern rebuilding notebook screens than it does to buy new notebooks. But yeah, diminishing returns definitely on CPU and GPU upgrades.
So I mean, basically in closing and bottom line, hard drive memory, that's pretty much all we would recommend if you want to upgrade your notebook. You can do additional stuff. You can do the CD-ROM drive, but I mean, if you really need it. If you need a new CPU, need new graphics, you can probably buy a new laptop anyway. Do, however, recycle your notebook. If it's still functioning, but it's too slow for your needs, consider donating it to a local charity. Lots of times they can send them to needy people, the students who don't have access to equipment, so they have at least something they can use.
Or at the very least, especially if it's an older notebook, they can make sure it's properly recycled into the tiny little bits of valuable material so it doesn't end up sitting in a landfill for the rest of time. We want to hear from you and your experiences upgrading your laptops. Good, bad, indifferent. We want to hear it. Send us your comments. Please email them to techzilla@revision3.com.
Now, Patrick, something about our show that we need to do on a regular basis.
I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. These are the people that help us bring the show to you. So if you can support them, we would be most grateful. Data Robotics Drobo, if you're looking for a better way to store your data, using the drives you got lying around, you got some serial ATA drives, you should check out the Drobo. It is infinitely expandable and provides RAID-like reliability without the technical hassles of RAID. It's so easy, even I use it. I bought one with my own hard-earned little dollars. With features that include self-monitoring, self-healing, and an easy-to-understand visual status and alert panel, Drobo provides a simple and easy way to store your data. And it's received the highest CNET rating for storage ever, so it's not just me that likes it. You can save $50 on buying a Drobo if you mention the discount code TechZilla. Just type in TechZilla at the Drobo store and you can save some cash. Do us a favor, support our sponsors because, well, they support us, and if you like the show, it's a nice little loop there. Help us out.
Let's face it, a lot of what you plan your activities around is based on the weather. Whether it's too rainy, too hot, or just perfect, you want to know beforehand so you can make the proper arrangements. While popping over to a weather website can help you better forecast your day, a better solution is WeatherWatcher. WeatherWatcher is an all-inclusive weather program that gives you up-to-the-minute information about climate around the world, including severe weather alerts received from the National Weather Service for those in the U.S. When running, WeatherWatcher sits in the system tray listing the current temperature in your area. Just double-click on the little icon to open up a full window. There you can adjust numerous settings as well as access numerous weather maps from different parts of the globe. Finally, for those of you who need weather information every minute of every day, you can use the WeatherWatcher auto-updating weather map as your Windows wallpaper. If you need a comprehensive weather app that covers just about everything, then check out WeatherWatcher.
When Apple released their MacBook and MacBook Pro lines, everyone oohed and ahed over the MagSafe power connection the machines use. Unfortunately, there is no cigarette lighter attachment for charging your MacBook when you're in a car. Thankfully, Patrick, being as resourceful as he is, has come up with a DIY way around that problem.
Well, actually, it wasn't me that came up with it.
Oh, no, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, I take it back then.
I got to point that out. Pretty much every brand of... Oh, have you taken it back?
Yeah.
Is it withdrawn?
Oh, yeah.
It's no longer beaming out over the IP? Anyhow, it just about, I stutter and stammer, just about every brand of notebook is easy to buy a cigarette lighter receptacle adapter, which is actually the Society of Automotive Engineers standard, J563. It's the name for lighter power sockets in your car. Basically what these things, what you plug stuff into. People used to light cigarettes with them back when people were evil and still smoked. Except, of course, for your new Apple MacBook or MacBook Pro with a MagSafe adapter, which is the cool little thing that looks like this, which they like to do commercials about because they can tell you that you no longer can pull your notebook off the table because we have a magnetic adapter that yanks off.
Yeah, it's good for klutzes like me.
Do you find it beneficial?
Yeah, it happens every so often. I'm glad that it's there. But what about Apple's airline adapter?
Okay, so that's a really interesting idea. You can actually run your notebook off of it. It will. It's you read the fine print. They're like, this is not to be used in an automotive device because it's the wrong, because it's like a millimeter off on the sizing.
I'm always scared that I'm going to explode things if I plug them into the wrong connector.
Well, you're not going to explode things. What it's going to do is
that was the technical term, by the way, explode things.
Explode things. I like that. It'll fit, right? So you're like, oh, it fits into the cigarette lighter socket or the cigarette power receptacle. Therefore, it must charge your notebook? No. What's really interesting is even if you use this in the, I think it's like 15 volts that are in the airline systems, which are that crazy socket down. I don't know if you can actually see that in there. That's what you plug into on an airplane. It will not charge your battery. It will keep your notebook running. It will keep it from depleting the battery, but it won't actually charge your notebook.
Is it like a trickle charge kind of deal?
It's not so much a trickle charge. Unless it's getting 16 volts or better, it will not charge the battery. It's kind of like you have to cross that line or it's not happy. So first of all, I got to say props to Stuart Schmidt at Stanford for the most excellent how to build an auto airline MagSafe power adapter.
We've got a link in the show notes.
So for the slick version of this, you need a universal notebook DC power adapter, which is one of these. We've got one from Targus. iGo makes them. Doesn't really matter as long as it has these sort of standard set of sockets that look like this. It'll be like a number 3 or a number 4 socket in there. I found this at the closeout at CompUSA. Normally you're going to pay about $60 for one of these. And what's slick about these is depending on what tip you plug in, it'll automatically give you a particular voltage. And I want to say a number 4 is 16 volts, which is perfect for a MacBook, and a number 3 goes to 19 volts, which is perfect for charging a MacBook Pro.
Now, if you try to use this in your car, are you going to totally screw up your laptop over time?
I don't think so. If you ask Apple, like I wouldn't be like, going to the Genius Bar and being like, I used this with the car and it stopped work. Don't bring that up. Just don't bring that up. Basically,
slide.
yeah. Well, what a lot of people are doing actually, the not so cool guy version of this is to wire let's go back to the steps. A 5.5 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter DC power jack, which is one that looks like this, or power plug, I should say, and so basically what you can either do is graft this onto your MacBook or MacBook Pro charger by using a plug and a jack, or you can just sacrifice one of the cable adapters. So pretend this is like still attached to this.
Okay.
Because we're cutting stuff up. And basically you can run 19 volts for your MacBook Pro out of your DC charger, or 16 volts for your MacBook. And
So-
you basically go from car, you can be the car.
Okay, great.
So car to the DC power adapter, and then we're going to use, this is a standard plug in the DC power adapter, and then we plug that into one of two things, either into our MagSafe airline connector or our modified MagSafe charger cable.
So my question is, why the heck don't they just sell a freaking car charger?
Nobody seems to answer that. No one at Apple has ever answered that as far as I know. No one outside of Apple has a really good reason. They don't license the MagSafe connector to third parties. No third party has come up with because there's a lot of knockoff iPhone jacks, nobody's selling knockoff MagSafe jacks at this point. None of the, like, you know, the Targus, the iGo, insert name of your favorite notebook, you know, toy vendor is doing a knockoff MagSafe plug. So if you go to Stuart Schmidt's blades, he basically says it's either they don't recognize the need or they don't care that people are asking for this.
Oh, well, that's kind of typical, isn't it?
I have no comments.
Yeah,
You know.
don't send me Apple hate mail, please.
Yeah.
It's true, though. I mean, there's you know, holes in the market that they need to fill, and they just don't get around to it for
Maybe they
one reason
figure
or another.
you
There's
just-
secret little reasons they don't like
People
to.
can carry a 200-watt AC power inverter.
It's not that hard. If you love your Mac enough, you'll be able to do it, right?
I just wanted to be able to do DC to DC. I mean, it's kind of frustrating that you don't have a slim, easy cable that does this, because you basically end up with a DC voltage adapter, the DC tip, and then either, you know, plugging your airplane charger, you know, into
How easy
that.
is that, right?
Well, it's actually pretty easy if you're spending a lot of time in the car and you want to be able to charge. Suddenly I'm from Boston. If you spend a lot of time in the car and you want to be able to charge your MacBook or MacBook Pro, this is about the only way you're going to do it. Unless you want to go to Mike Guyver, who sells pre-modified, I want to say Targus notebook adapters. So if the whole idea of doing some soldering, going to Radio Shack, picking up the adapter scares you, there is somebody who's doing these for money.
Not too bad.
Nah, yeah. We should also say there's a ton of information on Stuart Schmidt's page, including how to do this with an airline MagSafe adapter without cutting any expensive cables. We cut this because we wanted to solder this one on here, so you don't have to cut your airplane cable to do this.
That's nice.
Yeah, you just need one of these cigarette lighter power sockets. I feel so Cliff Clavin all of a sudden. Before we go on, we want to take this very minute to thank one of our sponsors, bringing this episode to you. We've got a brief message from the United States Air Force. If you fancy yourself an amateur videographer or just want to know how to convert your kid's birthday party video into a DVD, then you should go where we go for video help, videohelp.com. Videohelp.com is the place for prosumers and amateur video geeks to share and access information on video editing, converting from one video format to another, capturing video, and a whole lot of links to tools and sites that are totally useful. You can access the subject you're interested in off to the left or visit the most popular or updated material through links on the main page. Of course, the site's greatest draw is its massive user community. Whether it's one of the forums or the reviews of software, you can extract an amazing amount of user-generated information, the people who use this stuff hands-on everywhere you look. So if you've got a question about video on your Mac or PC, converting video, or capturing, well, surf on over to videohelp.com. You'll be glad you did.
All right, Patrick, you ready to answer some questions?
Abso-Smurfly.
The first one is from David, who writes in asking, I'm in the process of rebuilding my desktop. I have an ASRock 4-core dual SATA 2 motherboard, and when I check the website for a list of supported video cards, it lists the Gigabyte GV NX85T 256H as the only GeForce 8500 GT-based card. Will any other 8500 GT work?
I can't believe you actually were able to read off the motherboard name and the graphics card name.
Abso-Smurfly.
Could they put, nice. There's a tally going on here we should point out for the people who are not keeping Abso-Smurfly score at home. Well, first of all, 8500 GT is pretty much an 8500 GT, right? There's going to be differences in packaging. There's going to be differences, you know, maybe in whether it has 2 DVI ports out or 1 DVI port out, or a DVI and an HDMI, or a DVI and a VGA port. There's going to be different colors on the PC board that it's mounted on. But for the most part, 8500 GT should be an 8500 GT, and probably like the guys in the qualifications lab got a phone call. They're like, "We've got to print the manuals for the motherboards." And they went, "Well, we've got this card. It works," which is not taking anything from hardware qualifications, which is a nightmare job that I wouldn't wish on anybody. It's tough work. But you should be fine with any 8500 GT card. Probably you're probably fine with any PCI Express card, or whatever, PCI Express, AGP, PCI, depending on what your video card slot is.
They like to keep it real simple.
That would be nice.
Very, very simple and straightforward with this stuff.
I just figured that was like the card they had in house, so they used that to test it. Yeah. Don't get all wrapped up with the hardware qualification list. Now we have an email from Omar who writes in, I've downloaded videos from YouTube, but the video quality is horrible. Is there a free program that will improve that video quality?
Yeah, not so much with the improving of the video quality.
Not for love, money, open source, or joy. There is pretty much no magic fix for compressed, choppy, nasty video.
Nope.
What do they say? Like 30 million uniques show up every month. A bazillion people show up every day. Maybe 300,000 people have watched the video you want, which means it's expensive because they're hurling big, giant chunks of data over the net. So they compress it. They're using Flash. It's just you got what you got.
Although I have heard rumors that there may be a higher quality YouTube coming very soon.
Really?
Like the option to look at a higher res version. Yeah.
I wonder if you're going to pay a monthly fee or if that's going to be the stuff that
I
has
don't know. It's only been
advertising.
like whispered amongst the internets, but we'll see.
Keep us posted.
That would be pretty awesome, huh?
That would be very nice.
But there's so many other things out there that have better quality video anyway, like Blip and Vimeo. I mean, YouTube is just kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room, so everyone goes with that.
But it's the 800-pound gorilla that has like the kids falling off skateboards and everybody's favorite Mentos ads. And,
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
tempting.
Finally, we have an email from Greg who writes, in episode 23, you discussed print servers, but you should have also mentioned printers that are designed for networking. I upgraded to an all-in-one networked HP printer fax scanner. Now I can scan and print from every computer in our home, including one running XP and 3 running OS X.
Nice. Actually, I want to say this is a great tip, Greg. I was amazed at how many low-cost printers have network connectivity these days because it used to be such an expensive add-on feature. There were 8, I think, for sale in one flyer in the Sunday paper this week, and I don't think one of them was over 300, and a couple were down around 120 bucks.
I'm shopping for that exact same thing right now. So if you see any good deals, let me know. Apparently has the circular on him at this very moment.
It's in here somewhere. We'll dig it out later. Please, please, please don't forget to write us with your questions, your answers, your suggestions, or your comments. We live to serve you up to a point, of course. Jinx. But send those emails into techzilla at revision3.com. Plus, if you need to talk to other fans about topics covered on the show, visit our forums at revision3.com/forum. And speaking of forum topics, don't forget to check out our movie pick discussion. Last week, Roger picked King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters. Tell us what you think about it, why you liked it, why you didn't like it, why you enjoyed it, why you're never going to watch one of our movies again. And don't forget to visit www.netflix.com/techzilla if you want a free 2-week trial where you can get King of Kong Fistful of Quarters sent directly to your doorstep. And don't forget to check out previous episodes of Techzilla. They're just waiting to be rewatched at revision3.com/Techzilla. Coming up next show, rumor has it the new RSS feeds are in place. That means you can get the dailies or the weekly show, or both, whichever you want. We got the tech guys putting together for you. Tor, it's not a B-movie monster, it's the Onion Router, and we're going to show you how it can help cover your tracks when you're surfing online, plus a generous helping of your viewer emails, questions, and comments. We want to thank you so much for watching, and we want to thank you, Veronica, for stopping by.
Absolutely, anytime.
I think you may have... The score may have just traded here. You have been doing some unbelievably fun stuff on the Halo Daily.
That is very true.
You've taken your first flying lesson.
I know. I did an introductory flight. It was totally terrifying, but at the same time, it was very liberating.
Did they let you like steer the plane?
Yeah, I took off. I steered. I did like little rolls and stuff, and then I did not land. However, I said I'm not putting my own life into my own hands at this juncture, so you can land the plane.
Any cool stuff coming up on Mahalo?
Let's see. We've got a ping pong museum coming up. We've got some great interviews. We've got a lot of great stuff from South by Southwest that you can still go check out. So yeah, daily.mahalo.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us. Until next time, you've been watching Techzilla. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.